Kaya.
Uh-oh, not the time to yell though. I said we would be low-key, not yelling.
Right.
Hey guys, we are doing a live show tonight because I have a few videos that I'm working on that are going to take forever to get edited, and I haven't been putting up a huge amount of content lately, so I thought maybe if we did a live show that would be kind of fun. Hopefully I'm on my right channel, and hopefully I made it public. So the kids and John are having a rousing game of Monopoly
I took myself out.
in the background. And
We just bought Kaya out.
yeah, poor Kaya is going bankrupt, and we're trying to talk about finances and wisdom in your purchases, that kind of thing. Hey Catherine, how are you? So we do live shows over on Facebook every Saturday, Catherine and I. But I think it's been a while since I did a live stream here. You can hear our neighbor coming up with his super loud music right now. Hello, everybody. So one of the reasons we wanted to come on and visit for a second was that the videos that'll be coming up in the next little bit are about us going out into the local Tulsa area looking for homestead property. John's job is something that he's really enjoying, and hi everybody. I can't see terribly well, so I will try to be reading what you're writing. And again, you will hear John and the girls in the background. But what we've seen so far, one thing that we recommend highly if you're going to be purchasing a homestead is, if you can, rent in the area first, or live in the area. If you already live in the area, that's great. Then you kind of have an understanding of your climate, you have an understanding of what your local pest problems are, and so I think that's really, really important, is to understand your area. And it's really hard to do that from a homesteading point of view if you haven't seen a full rotation of seasons, if you haven't seen what happens with rain, what happens with drainage, what happens with, again, pests. So if you're homesteading, the seasons are very important, and what your local climate is like. Okay, sorry guys, I'm having a hard time reading everything. Oh, somebody sent me, I don't know if you guys want me to say your names or not. I did see the pictures of the courthouse, and they were beautiful. Sorry, the comments are going quite fast right now. So what we've gone out and seen so far has been a little trailer out in the middle of a very scary neighborhood with starving animals and what looked like meth labs. And we're going to try and take you through the gamut of what is available if you start from scratch, or or a homestead that has kind of been started, maybe has some fruit trees, has a nice house. And I think in order to find like a really, really nice homestead, which is what my parents had. My parents sold their completely finished homestead. And I think finding a completely finished homestead, one that is really, you jump on it the minute you see it, and it's everything and the bag of chips, I don't think that happens very often. Or if it does, you find out about it through friends or family, because when those go on the market, they sell very quickly and they sell for a very good price. And so my assumption is at this time we will be building a homestead again rather than purchasing a homestead, if that makes sense. I don't know, what else did you guys want to talk about? Again, I do have all these videos that are ready to be put up, but I kind of wanted to do a more thought-provoking, longer time editing them. Make sure that I got clips from our old homestead so that you could see that we really knew what we were talking about when we were talking about homesteading and what you want to look for. Let's see. Dustin Green asked if I still have the hat that you sent me. I probably do. We don't use hats as much here, and when we do use them, it's very, very cold. And so I use the hats that I have spun and knit that are double hats. So when I make a hat, I can show you. The hats that we wear when it's really cold.
Get out mine too, show.
because we spend a lot of time outside, when we are outside, we're out there for a couple hours, I have these hats that are double hats. So that over your ears, you have 4 layers of hat. And so in the fall, when it's not real cold, I will wear a single layer hat, but that's what they look like, the hats that we wear when we go out to take care of the horses and that kind of thing. Especially where we're from Idaho, it takes a certain kind of hat to keep you from having your ears fall off. What kind of wool am I combing? This one is Targhee, which is actually a breed that was invented up where we are. A sheep that's meant to be really good on open range, and the wool is pretty nice. This in particular is pretty nice. I got this from Sullivan Family Homestead, part of a fiber collaboration. So she sent me a big old bag of fiber, and then once I have it finished spinning, I'll send it back to her. I'll show you what I'm working on here. This one I think was merino, and I'm working on the other skein right now, but that is what it looks like so far. And I'm just going to do a 2-ply and keep it super simple. And I'm sorry if I'm missing comments because hey cat lover, haven't seen you in a long time. Let's see. Have I started the greenhouse yet? Anything growing? How soon will you do a video on that? Looking forward to it. So with the greenhouse that we're wanting to put out with the horses right now, I don't have the materials yet. What we have right now is a minivan to be able to haul any wood or anything, and it is very hard to recycle materials. A lot of times recycled materials come out of a dumpster and they're kind of dirty, and you don't really want them in the inside of your car. So what we have taken from the dumpster has been clean, but there's been a limited amount of it, and we don't have anywhere to store it. We can't really store it outside the door because we're in apartments. So getting the materials out there to the horses for the greenhouse has been interesting. I can't actually plant into the greenhouse until February, and so right now what I'm doing is conserving rabbit manure and the horse manure. We're collecting it off the pasture to put in a pile so that we can use it when we need it. And mostly it's just kind of a waiting game, which I don't really like. Waiting games are not my cup of tea. I'm definitely all action without thinking necessarily. And so this is definitely a growing experience for me to look at and say, I have got to be very, very careful this time about how I move forward on this. I don't want to inconvenience or irritate landowners, and it needs to be easy to clean up so that if we did find the homestead that we want and we were transitioning, I would need to be able to clean things up quickly where the horses are now and not leave a mess for them. That was part of the hardship when we were in Tulsa last year, was that me needing to be able to leave, there was concern about being able to clean the hotbeds up and take down the raised beds and not have there be a mess left for the landlord. And we achieved that. My friend Nikki decided she wanted all the materials, and so whatever I couldn't get cleaned up in time before I went back to Idaho, she came back later and harvested all of those materials, and then John was able to clean up the very last bit of it before he moved to this apartment. So it worked, but it was a little bit stressful because I wasn't there to facilitate it as much as I would have liked to have been. So were there any more questions? I will try to. Let's see. Mother Many Horses said, have you ever tried to spin horsehair the winter coat? It's pretty stiff and short. You can spin stiff as long as it has some kind of crimp in it, but it has to have some kind of crimp. It can't be straight. It doesn't hold on to, what wool does is all the crimpy little pieces kind of lock into each other like this. If it's all straight, and especially if it's short, those bonds break. Whereas if it goes in and then twists, it doesn't. But if it's straight and it stays straight, any movement will separate it. So you can spin horsehair if you get curly horsehair, which there is an actual hypoallergenic horse that has curly hair. My cousin actually has one. But you can spin dog hair quite easily as long as it has, again, some length and some crimp in it. Let's see. I'm having a hard time reading because it's right into my light. I'm looking. Now I can't see. Hold on a second. Let's see. Dawn said, anything you wish to suggest for a little money homestead? As long as you're not picky, for us, I'm almost never picky about the house. I'm very picky about the land. It can be a small space, but it needs to have certain things depending on where you're living. In Tulsa, it needs to have some drainage away from wherever you're going to be planting, also away from your house, because it rains a lot here. You don't want to be at the bottom of your property under a hill. You don't want to be at the lowest point. You want to be at the highest point so that the water drains away. Apparently out here you can have some flint and other solid bedrock type problems where you can't really plant things because you go a few inches under the soil and then you have rock, impenetrable rock apparently in some spaces. In others you've got a lot of clay. So you do want to do your homework as far as your soil in the area. Again, I'm not picky on houses. We did live in a tiny house on our property back in Idaho. For me, it's generally about my outdoor space. Fences are really important. If you can put your money into fences, then it will save you in headache later. I prefer cow panels. The reason I prefer cow panels is because they're rigid and animals can't. Horses could stretch them if they got at them from the right angle, but for the most part, horses really couldn't stretch cow panels if you had them securely anchored and they were tall enough. If you were using hog panels, which are shorter, it'd be more of a problem with horses. But I also love cow panels for goats. Regular cow panels will not keep baby goats in, but they will keep adult goats in. Oh, did Doug and Stacy come in? Somebody said hi, and I totally missed it.
Doug.
Where are they? Oh, they made it. You spelled my name wrong, Doug.
For some reason, I was the other night too. I don't remember what it was.
Really?
Hi, Doug.
It was probably because of his Homestead conference that we were talking about.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, here in this area, Doug and Stacy do a Homestead conference, and if you, I don't know if they still have any tickets left, but my friend Bobby went last year and she thought it was amazing, and I'm sure they're going to deliver just as well this year. Like being brushy is here if you want. Oh, Betty Bruce said that she trimmed a rabbit. I have so many people I need to talk to. We've got Christy who said we can have her roosters. We could come butcher her roosters and come put them in the freezer. And then Ebu has an Angora rabbit that we could come get. And with John working so many hours and us only having one vehicle, I have a hard time getting out of town. Everybody that we want to come see is about an hour and a half away in different directions, not in the same direction, unfortunately. And where it used to be that I would just hop in the car and, oh, it's only 12 hours away, let's do this thing. And I would just, hop in the car with the girls and we'd go.
We become driving pansies now.
I have now, if it's 20 minutes from our house, I give up and I can't do it. I guess it would be different if John went with us, but I found after how much traveling I did last year, we did more flying. We went to conferences. We went to, Bobby and I went to Mississippi to go see Danny and Wanda for their conference. We went to Baker's Creek in Missouri. We went to Baker's Creek in California. And did we do any others? Were there any others? And for whatever reason, it just kind of...
Down here to Oklahoma.
Wasn't something my body liked anymore.
When you flew here last year to see Dad.
Yeah, but that was for Baker's Creek here up in Missouri. So, let's see. Have I allowed my kids to use slingshots? We haven't used slingshots. The kids.
Well,
They have guns. I mean, what?
Yeah.
I used to have. We used to have a slingshot, and Dad would let me use it sometimes, but
Yeah. We did have a slingshot, but the kids were pretty little when we were back at our homestead. That's been 3 years ago. They do have firearms. They have a little 22. Each of them have little 22s.
I have 10-22.
You have a 10-22.
Under adult supervision.
Yeah, they were not allowed to shoot them alone. We would go out to the range, and I would stand behind Kaya, and John would stand behind Paige, and we'd let him do target practice. Sorry, I must be getting tired. I get on a live show, and all of a sudden I'm brain dead and just like, oh, I need to go to sleep.
I'm trying to figure out.
Hey, Danny Bowl, how are you? Let's
Doug
see.
says he's still got limited seats.
Oh, so Doug still has tickets. So if you guys are in the area, they are in Missouri. They're not doing it actually at their homestead. I need to bring this down because I can't see any of the comments. They're doing it at a theater. They're in their nearest town, so that there's enough seating for people, so that they have, people aren't dying of heat exhaustion from being out in the sun in the middle of summer. And I hear it's just a really, really fun time. They're going to have vendors. And if we could make it, we would. But I think we just kind of, Danny and Wanda don't travel much either. One of the reasons that they have their conference at their place is because Danny can't travel. He has pretty bad reactions to food that he didn't grow himself. And if I remember right, he did get sick when he went to the last Homestead conference that he went to back east. And unfortunately, I have adopted the same kind of low tolerance. Let's see. I can't, I keep not scrolling right.
Sorry, I'm typing rather than...
Sorry guys, I'm having a hard time
Rosalie
reading.
Yoder says she loves your blouse. It's so colorful.
Oh, thank you. It's actually a dress. I love to go to and shop at secondhand stores because there's always more original styles there than what you get conventionally by going to the mall. So I think this cost me all of $6, and I do like it. This was our church attire. It was kind of cold today, so I've got leggings. Usually I would have worn my tennis shoes, but today I really dolled it up and I wore boots instead of just raggedy old tennis shoes.
Also, if you can't read it very well, it's probably because your battery is about to die.
No, my battery is about to die, but that's not why I can't read it. It's because of the blue. I can't read the blue.
Tamison Titus says, Sigh, I'm so sorry that you're getting tired. I would be too. Homesteading is exhausting.
If only I was homesteading. Apartment living is exhausting. Homesteading is refreshing.
No. Well,
It's okay.
refreshingly exhausting.
Refreshingly exhausting. It's a different kind of tired. Okay, so Mother of Many Horses said something about cow panels, and I missed it. Said it was small gauge. In Idaho, it's quite large gauge, and it will actually hold in cows. It's not the same as what they use in concrete, where it's like not very welded. I've had my cow panels, some of them were probably at my parents' homestead from 20 years ago, because when my parents sold their homestead, a lot of the excess supplies that they had, they wanted to see me use it rather than having it lay around. And before they sold it, they gave me a lot of their extra farming stuff, and those cow panels were part of it. And right now, I've got some from John's parents that I'm going to be using in the greenhouse back in the Idaho homestead, depending on how long I'm there. If I have enough time while I'm there, I'll finish the hotbed greenhouse. But it looks like this year I might only be going in for a week. Go in, set up the water for the renters, and then come straight back here. Because if we have a homestead here, I will want to be able to get it started and get moving with that, rather than focusing on the homestead back in Idaho when I won't be staying to harvest anything from it. Susie said, are you going to buy another house to homestead? Will it mean a second mortgage, or do you plan on paying cash? I didn't see the rest of that. Did you see the rest of that?
Okay, who was it? Sorry.
Susie?
Susie Knack. You're going to buy another house. Okay, so it will mean a second mortgage. We have so little left on the first one that the renters are probably going to finish it off very quickly. We do have amazingly good renters. She says it's awesome that you have such good renters. Yes, we do.
We do.
And they have been upfront. They have been low maintenance. They have been just spot on. Couldn't ask for better people.
Really nice kids.
And in return, we're thinking we want to continue renting because it has been such a pleasure. But I think when they opt to move out, we will either opt to sell it or try to figure out what to do with it at that point. But for right now, yeah, I think we will continue to rent. So,
In Idaho, rent the homestead in Idaho.
yeah.
I wasn't sure. I didn't hear the rest of her question. That's what I was asking. Was I didn't see the rest of her question.
Well, I mean, second mortgage, or do you plan on paying cash? It's awesome that you have such good renters at your old place. So you saw.
Well, for us right now, it would be very conventional for us. We would obviously look for a home that was within our budget with just the same as most conventional people. But what we're looking for is probably different from what a lot of people would be looking for. And I guess the way I feel about it is we're not super happy about having another mortgage, but
Correct.
we are paying almost double renting what we would be able to pay for owning a home, and also being able to garden and have the horses with us instead of at a boarding facility. So we would save a lot of money by buying as opposed to continuing to rent, not just because of equity that you're building, but just plain because of how much rent costs compared to how much a mortgage costs. And so we're not jumping into it with both feet. We're not hitting it running. We're going out and looking, and that's what you'll see in the videos over the next couple days. We're looking at some very low-priced homes and then some fancier homes. But the commonality is that all of them have at least half an acre. We're looking for something with a storm shelter because of where we are, tornado shelter. And we would really like to have a well on the property, because when you have a well, when there are emergencies, especially if you can put a hand pump on the well, you have a lot of security in that situation compared to a lot of your neighbors. And it's just, knee-jerk reaction to me is I need to not necessarily not be afraid, but I do like to feel like I've taken every precaution against issues in our very grid dependent life right now. The whole world is so very grid dependent. And John said that somewhere, was it Facebook or where was it that you saw the one where FEMA came out and said everybody needs to have 6 months food storage?
Oh,
where was that?
That was, we were reading, it was one of the comments from, I don't know if everybody heard, but CenturyLink got hacked last week.
Okay, so did everybody hear that? I'm not sure they can hear you because.
Okay, let me slide. Can I get in frame?
Probably
No,
not, but
am
I
gonna
can.
get stabbed with
just
the
don't
claws?
hit
No, it's good. I'll just stay here. Hi, everybody.
all I'm saying is just don't
You're
hit
good.
this
Stay
spinning
there.
wheel.
You look better on camera than I anyway.
So, okay, so for those who don't know, I went to school for cybersecurity and forensics, digital forensics. And so that puts me kind of in the constantly reading about the paranoia of we're getting hacked, oh my golly, we're gonna die because the sky is falling, we're getting hacked. And one of those reads, we had a really big one this week. What's up? And
They won't be able to hear you.
we had a really big hack this week from CenturyLink, which took out a lot of Verizon Wireless or Verizon Network as well. And they're claiming that during an update, something didn't go right. I haven't watched over the weekend. I'm sure that Friday night at midnight, somebody finally came out with the truth. I don't know. But the comments on it were pretty spot on accurate. One of them was that one of them referenced FEMA finally coming out and admitting and saying, people, you need to have 6 months of food storage, food and water storage, in case the grid actually goes down because of getting hacked. That is, 5 years ago, that was hardcore Prepperville to have 6 months worth of supplies. Nowadays, at least the government officially is telling their people what was needed to survive something, should something be that catastrophic. So I see that it's becoming not necessarily a more mainstream idea, but it's becoming more accepted to be a homesteader, a prepper, or not so dependent on the grid. The perfect irony of it is that we're in an apartment right now. So, does that answer the question? Did I go down a rabbit hole?
Yes, that's true. Smallwood Homestead said, and your storage needs to include food for pets and livestock. For us, we would go out in the fall and we would buy enough hay to get us through to a couple months into the next grass season. And the same thing for chickens or any other kind of grain-eating livestock. We would go out and buy 2 years worth of food storage for our winter fowl, and we would butcher our excess fowl just before we went into winter because we didn't want to be feeding animals that were not feeding us. So we would keep our breeding stock, and it's really important to kind of make sure that you're into that rhythm. If you are planning to be homesteading, is that in fall, that's when you butcher. And if there was a catastrophe and we didn't have freezers anymore, you always want to butcher almost a little bit into winter when your temperatures are very solidly at or below freezing. And so there is a rhythm to homesteading if you want to do it efficiently, if you don't want to spend a lot of money on it. And so for us, that meant that we would go buy 2 years worth of grain for our poultry in the fall. And we spent a third as much as what you pay for it in the retail stores by going directly to the farmer. And we did the same thing with potatoes and pumpkins, and that was what we would feed the pigs and the goats and the chickens in the winter as kind of a supplement. Because you can feed them live food too; it just freezes. And then for the pigs, we would just cook it before we fed it to them. And so whatever stayed really good and didn't have bad spots on it, we would feed ourselves, and whatever was left over, as it would start to kind of turn a little bit, we would cook it for the pigs and the chickens. And if you go straight to the farmer instead of purchasing through a retail outlet, you get a lot more bang for your buck. No, you're good. Stay. I'm just turning it. I'm just turning it.
Okay, just turn it.
And
just
so.
Turned it, guys.
And the one thing is, if you are buying just straight grain, like straight wheat or something like that, I wonder if I could back this up and they could see you.
Maybe. Yeah, but then we'd have to yell.
Can you see that?
I'd have to yell.
And then, so what would happen is that if you're going to be giving straight grain that isn't really mixed and isn't fortified, you need to make sure that it is balanced in some other way. So for us, that was that we had, even in the winter, our animals were somewhat free range. The ducks would go underneath the rabbits and they would eat any of the alfalfa pellets that had dropped. We were feeding the rabbits alfalfa pellets, but we were also feeding them pumpkins and hay. And everybody pretty much ate the same thing, but we just kind of kept an eye on what seems to work best and what proportions.
Mother of many horses had to go.
Oh, that's too
Have a
bad.
good night. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye, bye-bye. Happy New Year. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve.
Okay, Go for Green Living says corn is the main crop around their area.
And we had to crack our corn, and even when we cracked our corn, our animals didn't seem to care for it. They seem to do best on barley. They seem to really do well on barley. A lot of times it isn't cleaned and it has rocks in it and that kind of thing. So, and a lot of times it will have been sprayed heavily and then not necessarily certified. Oh, we got 15% left battery. Okay, so we'll try and keep it short and then we'll close it up. And so be aware of that. You can have pesticide and herbicide residues in grain, and we did not feed that to our milk goats. We did purchase things like black oil sunflower seeds, beet pulp pellets, alfalfa pellets, and what else did we put in their feed?
Sweet feed.
We put a very small amount of sweet feed in it, and we mixed it ourselves, but we didn't give them the same grain that we gave to the chickens, just because for one thing, the rocks. Chickens can handle rocks. But,
It's just better. It's not going to work for us to both try to be squeezed in that frame. You just, yeah.
anyway,
Anyway.
so I feel uncertain about our situation here as far as we definitely don't have a well, and we have a tiny bit of food storage, but not as much as makes me comfortable. What are some other things? We don't have a heater yet. We don't have a way to cook without electricity. We're very, very vulnerable right now. That way, we have gone out before and tried to find some of these resources, and it can be unpredictable what the quality of these can be at like pawn shops. Are they really going to work? Are you going to pay more for them? So right now, that is our priority, is to get a heat source, a cooking source, and then some water storage. And that's kind of where our priority.
Now, the
sits right now.
things that are in our favor currently is we do have water purification, and we have a water source that is not a really attractive one right now. And we also have escape routes figured out. At least I do. I've got it figured out where to go.
And my paranoia there is that I have lived off grid, and I know that living off grid or being off grid is hard enough without having the right tools. So for me, having a water filter is definitely not enough. You actually need to have water in your home. And even though it doesn't get as cold here as it does in Idaho, if you had 3 days where you had cold weather outside, no heater inside, you could get pretty sick, especially if your calorie intake was low. And so, at least in my mind, our danger zone right here is pretty intense. And we are trying to make it be a priority to fix that. And it's one of the reasons we're looking at homestead land right now, so that if we found the perfect thing, we would probably jump on it. And because John, his job is going well. We have done well here in the fall, and after we kind of see how things go in the summer, if we can handle the heat, then this might be, a really great place for us. Even though I do miss my old homestead.
Anjri, oh boy, I'm sorry guys, my Russian is horrible. Anjri Anjri says Happy New Year from Russia.
Thank you. So I have like 5% battery left on my phone. I just wanted to jump in and say hi to everybody and let you know what's coming. I wanted to give a shout out to WTF Farm Girl. She sent us some maple syrup for Christmas, and that was really sweet, so go check her out. WTF Farm Girl.
WT Farm Girl?
WT
Farm Girl.
Farm Girl.
Yes.
It's
okay.
3 capitals, WTF Farm Girl, if that's how you want to say it. She meant it that way, WTF
Yes.
Farm Girl.
Yes. But...
Anyway, so I was on a roll, honey. WTF Farm Girl, Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. Thanks for hopping in here. If you're enjoying the horse videos, go check out Mother of Many Horses. She's also doing horse videos. And we will talk to you later, because I want to make sure that the live feed doesn't close before my battery does. Hey Bitty Boo, I do need to talk to Bitty Boo because she's got some questions in here, but I want to make sure that this actually processes, and I've got to plug it back in if I want that to happen. So, thanks for watching.
We could just plug it in.
We can't. The cord won't reach. I've
Get an
tried.
extension cord.
So, talk to you later.
Bye guys.